Every morning, before the world tells you who you are, you must remind yourself who you decided to be. Before the noise of opinions, before the pressure of expectations, before the weight of yesterday tries to sit on your shoulders again, you owe yourself a moment of truth. Because if you don't speak to your mind will listen to everything else. And most of what it hears will not build you. It will break you slowly, silently, and consistently. You don't wake up successful. You don't wake up confident. You don't wake up focused. You become those things daily, intentionally, deliberately. And one of the most powerful ways to do that is through the words you speak when no one is listening. Because the greatest conversation you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. Your life moves in the direction of your dominant thoughts, and your thoughts are shaped by your words. So if you keep speaking weakness, don't be surprised when you feel weak. If you keep repeating fear, don't be shocked when you hesitate. But if you decide every single morning to declare truth over your life, something begins to shift. Not overnight, not magically, but powerfully. So when you wake up, before you touch your phone, before you check notifications, before you step into the demands of the day, stand still for a moment and speak these lines with conviction, not like a wish, but like a decision. Every day of your life begins in one place, the mind. Before your body moves, before your mouth speaks, before your hands build or destroy anything in your world, a thought is formed. And that thought has power. It has direction. It has influence. Whether you realize it or not, your life is constantly being shaped by what you allow to live and grow inside your mind. Now here is where most people lose the battle before the day even begins. They wake up and immediately surrender control. They let yesterday's worries walk back into today. They let fear whisper louder than purpose. They allow distractions, opinions, and circumstances to dictate how they feel. And then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed, unmotivated, or stuck. But understand this clearly. Your mind was never designed to control you. It was designed to be controlled by you. You are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of your thoughts. And the moment you begin to separate yourself from what you feel and what you choose, you step into a higher level of authority over your life. Because control does not mean you will never feel fear, doubt, or frustration. It means those feelings will no longer decide your direction. Too many people are being led by emotions that were never meant to lead. Emotions are indicators, not commanders. They can tell you what is happening internally, but they should never determine what you do externally. If you wake up feeling tired, that is information, not an instruction to quit. If you feel fear, that is awareness, not a command to retreat. If you feel pressure, that is a signal, not a sentence. When you declare, I am in control of my thoughts, my emotions, and my actions, you are making a powerful decision. You are choosing not to react automatically, but to respond intentionally. And there is a difference. Reaction is immediate, emotional, and often regrettable. Response is thoughtful, controlled, and aligned with purpose. Control begins with awareness. You must become conscious of what you are thinking. What are the conversations you are having in your head when no one is around? Are you encouraging yourself, or are you constantly criticizing yourself? Are you reminding yourself of your potential, or are you replaying your limitations? Because whatever you repeat internally, you reinforce externally. If you constantly tell yourself, I can't do this, your mind will begin to believe it. And once the mind believes something, it starts to look for evidence to support it. You will notice obstacles more than opportunities. You will hesitate more than you act. And slowly, without realizing it, you begin to build a life that reflects the very doubts you keep feeding. But the opposite is also true. When you choose to take control and say, I am capable, I am learning, I am improving, your mind shifts. It starts to search for solutions instead of problems. It becomes creative instead of defensive. It begins to align your behavior with your belief. That is why your words matter. Not just the words you say to others, but the words you say to yourself. Control also requires discipline, because the truth is your mind will not always cooperate at first. It has been trained often for years to think in certain patterns, negative patterns, fearful patterns, limiting patterns. And breaking those patterns is not a one-time decision. It is a daily practice. You will have mornings where your thoughts feel heavy, where doubt tries to speak louder than confidence, where excuses sound more convincing than action. In those moments, control is not about feeling strong. It is about choosing strength anyway. You must learn to interrupt your own patterns. When a negative thought enters your mind, do not entertain it, challenge it, question it, replace it. Do not allow it to sit there and grow roots, because thoughts, if left unchecked, turn into beliefs. And beliefs, over time, turn into behaviors. And behavior creates your results. This is why control is so powerful. Because when you control your thoughts, you influence your emotions. When you influence your emotions, you guide your actions. And when your actions are guided with intention, your life begins to move in a different direction. It is a chain reaction, but it starts with you. Now let's talk about emotions, because this is where many people feel the weakest. They say, I can't control how I feel. And to a certain extent, that is true. You cannot always control what you feel in the moment, but you can absolutely control what you do with those feelings. You can choose whether to feed them or starve them. If you feel anger, you can choose to react impulsively or respond with clarity. If you feel fear, you can choose to avoid or to face it step by step. If you feel doubt, you can choose to surrender to it or to move forward despite it. Your power is not in eliminating emotions, it is in managing them. And finally, control is proven through action. It is easy to say you are in control when everything is going well, when you feel motivated, when circumstances are favorable. But real control is revealed when things are difficult, when you are tired, when you are discouraged, when nothing around you seems to be working. That is when your decisions matter the most. Will you still show up? Will you still put in the effort? Will you still choose discipline over comfort? Because at the end of the day, your actions are the loudest expression of your control. Not your intentions, not your plans, not your words, your actions. So when you wake up and declare, I am in control of my thoughts, my emotions, and my actions, understand that you are stepping into responsibility. You are choosing ownership over excuses. You are deciding that your life will not be controlled by circumstances, but directed by choices. And that decision, repeated daily, is what separates those who drift through life from those who design it. Control is not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. And the more intentional you become, the more powerful your life becomes. There is a silent weight that many people carry into each new day, the weight of what has already happened. Mistakes, failures, regrets, missed opportunities, broken relationships, wrong decisions, all of it sits in the background of the mind, quietly influencing how a person sees themselves. And without realizing it, they begin to treat their past not as something that happened, but as something that is them. But that is where the misunderstanding begins. Your past is an event. It is not your identity. The problem is not that people have a past. Everyone does. The problem is that many people have allowed their past to become their definition. They wake up not as who they can be, but as who they believe they were. And that belief becomes a limitation. It shapes how they think, how they act, and what they believe they deserve. When you declare, I am not defined by my past, I am prepared by it, you are reclaiming your identity. You are separating who you are from what you have experienced. And that is a powerful shift. Because once you stop identifying with your past, you gain the ability to learn from it without being controlled by it. Your past was never meant to imprison you. It was meant to instruct you. Every mistake you made contains a lesson. Every failure holds information. Every setback reveals something you needed to understand. But here is the key. You only benefit from those lessons if you choose to learn from them. If you keep replaying your past without reflection, it becomes a burden. But if you study it with intention, it becomes preparation. Preparation for what? Preparation for better decisions, better habits, better awareness, better outcomes. The difference between someone who is stuck and someone who is growing is not that one has failed and the other hasn't. It's that one uses failure as a reason to stop, while the other uses it as a reason to adjust. You cannot change what has already happened. That door is closed. But you can absolutely change what it means. Meaning is powerful. Because the meaning you give to your past determines how it affects your future. If you look at your past and say, I failed, therefore I am a failure, you create a belief that limits your potential. But if you look at the same situation and say, I failed, therefore I learned what not to do, you transform that experience into an advantage. Same event, different interpretation, completely different outcome. Too many people are emotionally attached to a version of themselves that no longer exists. They keep introducing themselves to the world based on old chapters of their life. I'm not good at this. I always mess things up. I've never been successful. These are not facts, they are conclusions. and most of them are based on outdated evidence. You are not the same person you were yesterday unless you choose to be. Growth requires you to update your identity. It requires you to release the version of yourself that made those mistakes and step into the version of yourself that has learned from them. But that only happens when you stop rehearsing your past and start redesigning your future. There is also something else you must understand. Holding on to your past does not protect you, it limits you. Some people believe that by constantly remembering their failures, they are being cautious. They think it will prevent them from making the same mistakes again. But what it often does instead is create fear. Fear of trying again. Fear of failing again. Fear of stepping into something new. And fear does not protect growth, it prevents it. Yes, you should remember the lesson, but you must release the emotional weight. Because if every time you think about your past you feel shame, guilt, or regret, then you have not truly learned from it. You are still living in it. Learning brings clarity. Living in the past brings pain. You cannot move forward effectively if you are constantly looking backward emotionally. Now let's be real. Letting go of the past is not always easy, especially when the experiences were painful, especially when the mistakes had consequences, especially when you feel like you should have known better. But holding on to that pain does not change what happened. It only continues the damage. At some point, you must make a decision. Not an emotional one, but a deliberate one. You must decide that your future deserves more attention than your past. You must decide that your next chapter matters more than your previous one. And most importantly, you must decide that you are no longer going to use your past as an excuse to stay where you are. Because the truth is, many people are not stuck because of what happened to them. They are stuck because of the story they keep telling themselves about what happened. Change the story and you change the direction. Instead of saying, I've always struggled, say, I've been learning. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, say, I'm improving every day. Instead of saying, I messed everything up, say, I gained experience I didn't have before. This is not about ignoring reality. It's about reframing it in a way that empowers you instead of weakening you. Your past has already done its job. It has given you experience. It has shown you consequences. It has revealed your patterns. Now it's your responsibility to use that information, because preparation is only valuable if it is applied. And that brings us to action. Being prepared by your past means you move differently now. You think more clearly. You choose more wisely. You act more intentionally. It means you take what you've learned and you apply it to your present decisions. If your past taught you patience, then practice patience today. If it taught you discipline, then show discipline now. If it revealed your weaknesses, then work on strengthening them. That is how you honor your past, by using it, not by being controlled by it. So when you wake up and declare, I am not defined by my past, I am prepared by it, understand what you are saying. You are saying, I refuse to be limited by old versions of myself. You are saying, I will not allow yesterday to control today. You are saying, everything I've been through has equipped me, not disqualified me. And that mindset is powerful because it frees you. It releases you from the weight of regret and places you in a position of growth. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. You are not stuck. You are prepared. Prepared to think differently. Prepared to act differently. Prepared to build something new with the knowledge you now have. Your past was a classroom, not a cage. Take the lesson and keep moving forward. There is a dangerous habit that quietly steals years from people's lives. It's called waiting. Waiting for the perfect time. Waiting for the right opportunity. Waiting until they feel ready. Waiting until everything makes sense. And while they wait, life moves. Time passes, opportunities shift, and potential remains unused. The truth is, there will never be a perfect moment to begin. It's when you declare, I have the power to create the life I want starting today. You are breaking that cycle of delay. You are refusing to put your future on hold for conditions that may never arrive. You are choosing action over hesitation, responsibility over excuses, and movement over comfort. Because the life you want is not something you stumble upon. It is something you build. And every build starts with a decision. Not a big, dramatic decision that changes everything overnight, but a simple, firm decision that says, I am starting now. That decision is powerful because it shifts you from being passive to being intentional. It places you back in control. It reminds you that your life is not just happening to you. You are actively shaping it through your choices. Too many people underestimate the power they already have. They look at others and think success is reserved for a different kind of person, someone more talented, more connected, more fortunate. But that belief is a limitation, because while circumstances can influence your starting point, they do not have to determine your direction. Power does not always look like control over everything around you. Real power is control over what you do next. You may not be able to change where you are today instantly. You may not be able to fix everything at once, but you can choose your next step. You can choose your attitude. You can choose your effort. And those small choices repeated consistently begin to create momentum. Momentum is what transforms lives. It's not about doing everything at once. It's about doing something consistently. A small improvement today, a better decision tomorrow, a stronger habit the next day. Over time, these small actions compound into something significant. But it only starts when you stop waiting. Waiting often disguises itself as preparation. People say, I just need to learn a little more, or I'll start when things calm down, or I'm not ready yet. But in many cases, that is not preparation. It is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of stepping into something unfamiliar. And fear has a way of convincing you that staying where you are is safer than moving forward. But staying still is not safe. It is comfortable. And comfort over time becomes a cage. Growth requires movement, and movement requires courage. You do not need to have everything figured out to begin. In fact, clarity often comes after action, not before it. When you take a step, you learn something. When you try, you discover something. When you fail, you understand something. Action creates awareness, and awareness allows you to adjust. So instead of waiting for certainty, start with commitment. Commit to showing up. Commit to learning. Commit to improving, because the path will become clearer as you walk it. Another important truth you must accept is this: no one is coming to build your life for you. People can support you, they can guide you, they can inspire you, but they cannot replace your responsibility. Your life is your project, your responsibility, your opportunity. And that is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. Because if your life is your responsibility, then it is also within your influence. You are not powerless, you are not stuck. You are not limited to what has already been done. You have the ability to create change. But creation requires effort. It requires discipline. It requires consistency. It requires you to show up even when it's inconvenient, even when it's uncomfortable, even when results are not immediate. Because the life you want is built in the unseen moments. It's built in the early mornings when you choose to get up instead of sleep in. It's built in the quiet hours when you choose to work instead of waste time. It's built in the small decisions that no one applauds, but that shape your habits and your character. This is where many people give up. They want results without the process. They want change without consistency. They want success without sacrifice. But creation does not work that way. Everything you see in your life right now is a result of something. Something you did, something you didn't do, something you allowed, or something you avoided. And if you want different results, you must introduce different actions. That's the power you have. Not to control everything, but to influence what happens next. And that influence grows stronger every day you choose to act with intention. Now understand this clearly. Starting today does not mean everything will change today. It means everything begins to change because of today. The moment you take action, you shift your direction. You move from standing still to moving forward. And even if the progress is slow, it is still progress. Do not underestimate the value of starting small. Small actions build confidence. They create evidence that you are capable. They prove to you that change is possible. And that belief is essential, because once you believe you can improve, you become more willing to try. And the more you try, the more you grow. So when you say, I have the power to create the life I want starting today, you are making a commitment to yourself. A commitment to stop waiting. A commitment to stop making excuses. A commitment to stop doubting your ability to change. You are saying, I will use what I have where I am, and I will begin. And that decision, though it may seem small, is the beginning of transformation. Because every great change started with a single step. Not a perfect step, not a guaranteed step, just a step. So take it. Start where you are. Use what you have. Do what you can, and then do it again tomorrow. That is how you create a life. Not in one moment, but in many consistent ones. Starting today. There is a quiet trap that stops more people than failure ever could, and it's called perfection. It looks harmless at first. It sounds responsible, even admirable. I just want to get it right. I don't want to mess this up. I'll start when everything is ready. But underneath those words is something far more limiting than caution. It's hesitation. It's fear disguised as standards. And over time, it becomes one of the biggest reasons people never move forward. Perfection convinces you that if it's not flawless, it's not worth doing. And that belief will keep you stuck longer than any obstacle ever could. When you declare, I will focus on progress, not perfection, you are breaking free from that trap. You are giving yourself permission to move, to learn, to grow, even when things are not ideal. You are choosing development over delay, action over overthinking, and momentum over stagnation. Because here is the truth, nothing starts perfect. Every skill you admire, every success you respect, every person you look up to, none of it began at a high level. Behind every polished result is a long history of imperfect attempts, mistakes, adjustments, and consistent effort. What you see now is the result of progress, not perfection. But most people compare their beginning to someone else's middle or end. They expect themselves to perform at a level they have not yet practiced. And when they don't meet that unrealistic expectation, they feel discouraged and stop. That is not a lack of ability. That is a lack of patience. Progress requires you to accept that growth is a process. It is not immediate. It is not always visible, and it is not always comfortable. There will be moments where you feel like you are not improving fast enough. Moments where your results don't match your effort. Moments where you question whether it is even worth continuing. But those moments are part of the journey, not signs that you should quit. Perfection says, if it's not right, stop. Progress says, if it's not right, improve. And that difference changes everything. When you focus on progress, you shift your attention from outcomes to effort. You begin to value consistency over intensity. Instead of asking, did I do this perfectly? You start asking, did I move forward today? And that question is far more powerful because it keeps you in motion. Motion creates growth. Every small step you take teaches you something. Every attempt gives you feedback. Every mistake shows you what to adjust. And over time, these small improvements begin to stack. They compound. They build into something meaningful. But you only experience that if you keep going. Perfection interrupts that process. It creates pressure. It makes you overanalyze every move. It fills your mind with doubt before you even begin. And in many cases, it leads to procrastination. Not because you are lazy, but because you are afraid of not meeting your own expectations. So instead of starting imperfectly, you delay indefinitely. But delaying does not improve your results. It only postpones your progress. You must understand this clearly. You do not get better by waiting. You get better by doing, even if it's messy, even if it's slow, even if it's uncomfortable. Growth lives in repetition, not in perfection. You learn by trying, you improve by adjusting, you build confidence by showing up again and again, even when you don't feel ready. That is how progress works. It rewards consistency, not flawlessness. Another important truth is this: perfection is subjective. What you consider not good enough today may actually be more than enough to start. And what you see as a mistake may be a necessary step in your development. But if you keep chasing an ideal that constantly moves, you will never feel satisfied with your efforts. Progress, however, is measurable. You can look at where you were yesterday and see where you are today. You can recognize improvement even if it's small. And those small improvements build confidence. They remind you that you are moving forward. They give you the motivation to continue. Confidence does not come from doing things perfectly. It comes from seeing yourself improve. And improvement only happens when you take action. There is also a freedom that comes with focusing on progress. It removes the fear of failure. Because when your goal is to improve, failure is no longer something to avoid. It becomes something to use. Every mistake becomes information. Every setback becomes a lesson. Every challenge becomes an opportunity to grow. That mindset keeps you resilient. Instead of stopping when things go wrong, you adjust. Instead of doubting yourself, you develop yourself. Instead of giving up, you keep building. And that is where real success comes from. Not from getting everything right the first time, but from refusing to stop refining. Now let's talk about consistency. Progress is not built in one day. It is built across many days. It is the result of showing up repeatedly, even when the results are not immediate. And this is where many people struggle. They expect quick outcomes from slow processes. But meaningful growth takes time. It requires patience. It requires discipline. It requires you to trust the process even when you cannot yet see the results. And that trust is built through daily action. You do a little more today, you improve slightly tomorrow, you stay committed the next day. And before you realize it, you have moved further than you thought possible. Not because you were perfect, but because you were consistent. So when you wake up and declare, I will focus on progress, not perfection, understand what you are committing to. You are committing to starting, even when you are not ready. You are committing to continuing, even when it is difficult. You are committing to improving, even when it is slow. You are choosing to release unrealistic expectations and replace them with intentional effort. And that choice will change how you approach everything. You will take more action. You will fear failure less. You will learn faster. You will grow stronger. And most importantly, you will move forward consistently, steadily, and intentionally. Because at the end of the day, progress is what builds results, not perfection. So stop waiting to get everything right. Start moving. Start learning. Start improving. And trust that with time, effort, and consistency, what begins as imperfect will evolve into something powerful. Every single day, your life is being shaped, not by the big, dramatic decisions you think about once in a while, but by the small, quiet choices you make consistently. What you do when no one is watching, what you choose when it's easier to avoid, what you prioritize when you have the option to delay. These moments seem insignificant, but they are powerful because they accumulate, they compound, and over time, they define your direction. When you declare, I choose discipline over distraction, you are making a decision that most people struggle to make. You are choosing long-term growth over short-term comfort. You are choosing purpose over impulse. You are choosing to stay aligned with your goals even when everything around you is pulling you in the opposite direction. Distraction is everywhere. It is designed to capture your attention, to pull you away from what matters, and to keep you occupied with things that feel good in the moment but add little value to your future. It shows up in many forms: endless scrolling, unnecessary conversations, procrastination, overthinking, entertainment without limits, and even habits that feel harmless but slowly drain your time and energy. And the truth is, distraction is not always obvious. It does not always look like something negative. Sometimes it looks like comfort. Sometimes it looks like just a break. Sometimes it looks like I'll do it later. But if you are not careful, later turns into never. Discipline, on the other hand, is not always comfortable. It requires effort. It requires focus. It requires you to do what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. And that is why many people avoid it, because discipline demands something from you. It demands consistency, commitment, and control. But here is what you must understand. Discipline is not a restriction. It is a form of freedom. It frees you from regret. It frees you from wasted potential. It frees you from the cycle of starting and stopping. When you are disciplined, you do not rely on motivation to take action. You rely on commitment. And commitment is far more reliable than how you feel in the moment. Most people wait to feel motivated before they act, but motivation is unpredictable. It comes and goes. Some days you will feel driven and some days you won't. If your actions depend on your feelings, your progress will always be inconsistent. Discipline removes that uncertainty. It allows you to show up regardless of how you feel. It creates structure in your life. It builds habits that carry you forward even when your emotions are not supporting you. And over time, those habits become part of who you are. This is why discipline is so powerful. It turns effort into identity. You are not just someone who tries occasionally. You become someone who follows through consistently. Now let's talk about the real battle, the moment of choice. Every day, you will face situations where you have two options. One leads to growth, the other leads to comfort. One requires effort, the other offers ease. One aligns with your goals, the other distracts you from them. And in those moments, the decision you make may seem small. It may not feel like it matters, but it does. Choosing to work instead of scroll, choosing to focus instead of delay, choosing to act instead of overthink. These are the decisions that build discipline. And discipline is not built in one big moment. It is built in many small ones. The challenge is that distraction often feels more appealing in the moment. It gives you instant satisfaction. It requires no effort. It allows you to avoid discomfort. But what it gives you now, it takes from you later. Lost time, missed opportunities, unfinished goals. Discipline may feel harder in the moment, but it pays off over time. It builds progress. It creates results. It moves you closer to the life you say you want. So the question is not whether you will face distraction. You will. The question is whether you will consistently choose discipline in those moments. And that choice requires awareness. You must recognize when you are being pulled away from your priorities. You must be honest with yourself about how you are spending your time. Because if you are not intentional, your time will be filled with things that do not serve your growth. Time is one of your most valuable resources. Once it is gone, you cannot get it back. And how you use it determines what you become. Discipline helps you protect your time. It helps you focus on what matters. It helps you set boundaries. It helps you say no to things that do not align with your goals, even when they are tempting. And this is not about removing all enjoyment from your life. It is about balance. It is about making sure that your priorities come first. It is about earning your rest, not escaping into it. Because there is a difference between rest and distraction. Rest is intentional. It helps you recover. It prepares you to continue. Distraction, however, is often avoidance. It delays your progress. It keeps you from facing what needs to be done. And the more you avoid, the harder things become. Discipline helps you face things early, before they become overwhelming. It keeps you moving. It keeps you engaged. It keeps you in control. Now understand this. Discipline is not something you either have or don't have. It is something you build. And like anything you build, it starts small. You do not need to change everything at once. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to start making better choices consistently. One decision at a time, one habit at a time, one day at a time. You choose to focus for an extra hour. You choose to complete a task you would normally delay. You choose to wake up when you said you would. You choose to follow through on your commitments. And each time you make those choices, you strengthen your discipline. Over time, it becomes easier. Not because the work gets easier, but because you become stronger. You become more focused, more committed, more aligned with your goals. So when you wake up and say, I choose discipline over distraction, you are making a powerful commitment. You are saying, I will not allow temporary comfort to steal my long-term success. You are saying, I will take control of my time, my focus, and my actions. You are saying, I will do what needs to be done even when it is not convenient. And that mindset will set you apart. Because while others are waiting, delaying, and getting distracted, you will be building step by step, day by day. And eventually the results of your discipline will speak for themselves. There is a misunderstanding that quietly shapes how many people see success. Some believe it is something you are given. Others believe it is something reserved for a select few, those with connections, luck, or perfect circumstances. And because of that belief, they either wait for it or doubt they can ever reach it. But success does not operate on feelings, wishes, or assumptions. It responds to alignment. Alignment between what you want and what you are willing to do consistently to achieve it. When you declare, I deserve success because I am willing to work for it, you are not claiming entitlement. You are claiming responsibility. You are not saying success should come to you easily. You are saying you are ready to meet the standard it requires. And that is where everything changes. Because success is not about what you say you want. It is about what your daily actions prove you are committed to. Many people want success, but not everyone is willing to do what it takes to earn it. They want the outcome without the process. They want the reward without the discipline. They want the recognition without the repetition. And when results don't come quickly, they feel discouraged as if something unfair is happening. But success is not unfair. It is consistent. It follows principles. It responds to effort. It grows where there is persistence. If you plant seeds and take care of them, growth will happen. Not immediately, not dramatically, but gradually, steadily, and predictably. And the same is true for your goals. The effort you invest today may not show results right away, but it is building something beneath the surface. And that is why patience is necessary. Because the work often comes before the visible results. This is where many people lose focus. They start strong. They feel motivated. They take action. But when they do not see immediate progress, they begin to question themselves. They wonder if it is working. They doubt their ability. And sometimes they stop altogether. Not because they are incapable, but because they expected results before the process had time to produce them. You must understand this clearly. Results are delayed, but they are not denied if the work is consistent. Your effort is never wasted when it is directed with purpose. Every hour you invest, every skill you develop, every habit you strengthen, it is all contributing to something. Even when you cannot see it yet, even when it feels like nothing is changing, growth is happening. And the people who succeed are not always the most talented. They are the most consistent. They are the ones who continue when it is slow. They are the ones who keep showing up when it is difficult. They are the ones who trust the process enough to stay committed. That is what it means to be willing to work for it. It means you do not just talk about your goals, you act on them. It means you do not rely on motivation, you build discipline. It means you do not quit when it becomes uncomfortable. You adjust and continue. Because success requires effort that is often unseen. It requires you to work when no one is watching, to improve when no one is applauding, to stay focused when distractions are everywhere. It requires you to invest in yourself consistently, even when the results are not immediate. And that kind of effort builds something deeper than success. It builds character. Character is what allows you to handle success when it comes. It is what keeps you grounded. It is what helps you maintain what you have built. Without it, even success can be temporary. So the work you are doing is not just about achieving something. It is about becoming someone. Someone who is disciplined. Someone who is focused. Someone who follows through. Someone who does not give up easily. And that version of you is capable of far more than you may realize right now. Now let's address something important. The word deserve. To deserve something is not to demand it, it is to prepare for it. You do not deserve success simply because you want it. You deserve it because you are becoming the kind of person who can create it, sustain it, and grow it. And that comes from your actions. If you say you want a certain life, but your habits do not support it, there is a misalignment. And success does not respond to what you say, it responds to what you do. So you must ask yourself honestly, are my daily actions aligned with my goals? Am I using my time effectively? Am I improving my skills? Am I staying consistent even when it is hard? Am I doing the work that others are avoiding? Because the answers to those questions determine your direction. The good news is you have control over those answers. You can choose to work harder. You can choose to focus more. You can choose to improve daily. And every time you make those choices, you move closer to the results you want. That is your power. And that is why your effort matters so much. Effort builds momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence builds persistence. And persistence is what carries you through challenges. Because challenges will come. There will be obstacles. There will be setbacks. There will be moments where things do not go as planned. But your willingness to continue working despite those challenges is what separates you. You do not stop because it is difficult. You adapt. You learn. You keep moving. And over time, that mindset creates results. So when you wake up and say, I deserve success because I'm willing to work for it, you are making a commitment. You are saying, I will not expect results without effort. You are saying, Antati, I will align my actions with my goals. You are saying, I will stay consistent even when it is slow. And that commitment builds something powerful. It builds a standard that you hold yourself to, a standard that pushes you forward, a standard that keeps you from settling for less than what you are capable of. Because once you realize that success is something you can build, not something you have to wait for, you begin to approach life differently. You stop hoping and you start doing. You stop doubting and you start improving. You stop waiting and you start working. And that is where everything begins to change. Not instantly, not easily, but steadily. Because success is not an event, it is a result. A result of consistent effort, focused action, and a willingness to keep going. So keep working, even when it is quiet, even when it is slow, even when it feels like nothing is happening, because something is happening. You are becoming someone who earns success, and that is what makes it yours. There is a level of power in life that most people never reach, not because it is hidden from them, but because it is too simple to respect. It is the power of showing up consistently, intentionally, regardless of mood, emotion, or circumstance. And yet, this is the exact point where many people lose momentum in their lives. Not because they lack ability, but because they allow how they feel to decide what they do. Feelings are real, but they are not reliable leaders. When you declare, I will show up today no matter how I feel, you are stepping into a deeper level of maturity. You are no longer allowing your emotions to dictate your direction. Instead, you are deciding that your commitments will lead and your feelings will follow. This is one of the most important shifts a person can make in life, because feelings are temporary. They change quickly. They are influenced by sleep, stress, environment, thoughts, and even small disappointments. One moment you feel motivated, the next moment you feel tired. One moment you feel confident, the next moment doubt creeps in. If your actions depend on your emotions, your progress will always be unstable. But when your actions depend on your discipline, your progress becomes consistent. Showing up is not always exciting. In fact, most of the time it is not. There will be days when your energy is low, days when your mind feels distracted, days when you would rather rest, avoid, or postpone. And in those moments, the real test is not whether you feel ready. It is whether you choose to act anyway. Because life rewards consistency, not occasional effort. Anyone can show up when they feel good. Anyone can perform when they are motivated. But success is built by those who show up when it is inconvenient, uncomfortable, or unappealing. That is where separation happens. Between those who drift and those who build. Between those who start and stop and those who continue regardless of conditions. You must understand this clearly. Your future is not shaped by your best days. It is shaped by your average days. And your average days are defined by whether or not you show up. When you show up consistently, even without motivation, you begin to build something powerful, identity. You begin to see yourself as someone who follows through, someone who is dependable, someone who does not rely on feelings to act. And that identity changes everything. Because once you start identifying as someone who shows up, you begin to act differently automatically. You stop negotiating with your emotions. You stop waiting for the right mood. You stop overthinking simple actions. Instead, you move with intention. This is how discipline becomes who you are, not just what you do. But let's be honest, showing up is not always easy. There will be resistance, mental resistance, emotional resistance, physical resistance. Your mind will try to convince you to delay. It will tell you can do it later, or today doesn't really matter, or you need a break first. And sometimes those thoughts feel reasonable. But discipline is not built in agreement with comfort. It is built in opposition to it. If you always listen to the voice that tells you to wait, you will build a habit of waiting. If you always listen to the voice that tells you to avoid effort, you will build a habit of avoidance. And over time, those habits quietly shape a life of inconsistency. But when you choose to show up anyway, something powerful happens. You weaken the control of those excuses. Each time you act, despite how you feel, you strengthen your discipline. You train your mind to understand that feelings are not commands. You teach yourself that action does not depend on emotional permission, and that training, repeated daily, builds mental strength. There is also something deeper happening when you show up consistently. You begin to build trust with yourself. Self-trust is one of the most valuable forms of confidence. It is the quiet belief that you will do what you said you would do, that you will follow through, that you will not abandon your own commitments when it becomes difficult, and that trust is not built through words, it is built through action. Every time you show up, you reinforce that trust. Every time you keep going, you strengthen it. Every time you choose discipline over hesitation, you deepen your self-respect. And that changes how you see yourself. Because when you trust yourself, you stop needing external validation to move forward. You stop doubting your ability to follow through. You stop second-guessing every decision. Instead, you move with quiet confidence, knowing that you can rely on yourself. But if you constantly break your own commitments, even in small ways, that trust weakens. And when self-trust weakens, doubt increases. Procrastination increases. Inconsistency increases. So the real battle is not just about productivity. It is about integrity with yourself. Do you do what you said you would do, even when you don't feel like it? That is the question that shapes your future. Showing up also teaches resilience, because not every day will feel productive. Not every attempt will feel successful. Not every effort will produce immediate results. But when you keep showing up, you develop the ability to handle uncertainty without quitting. You learn that progress is not always visible, but it is still happening. You learn that effort is still valuable, even when results are delayed. You learn that consistency matters more than intensity. And over time, that mindset makes you stronger. Now, here is an important truth. You do not need to feel ready to show up. Readiness is often something you develop through action, not before it. If you wait until you feel ready, you may never begin. But if you begin anyway, readiness follows. Action creates clarity. Action creates momentum. Action creates confidence. So instead of asking, do I feel like doing this today? Ask, what happens if I don't show up today? Because every day you avoid showing up, you delay your growth. Every day you postpone action, you weaken momentum. Every day you choose comfort over effort, you reinforce hesitation. But every time you show up, even imperfectly, you move forward. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but meaningfully. And meaningfully repeated actions create transformation. So when you wake up and say, I will show up today, no matter how I feel, you are making a decision that places discipline above emotion. You are saying, my goals matter more than my mood. You are saying, my future is more important than my comfort. You are saying, I will not abandon my responsibilities because of temporary feelings. And that decision, repeated daily, becomes a lifestyle. A lifestyle of consistency, a lifestyle of reliability, a lifestyle of quiet strength. Because in the end, success does not belong to the most motivated. It belongs to those who show up again and again, regardless of how they feel.